Thanks, Anton. So my name is Louise. I've previously had my own startup for 4 years in tech and social media, and now I have specialized in performance management and supporting other business owners build their own teams for the first time and develop their HR structure for the first time. Thank you.
Hey folks, this is Jeff Wellstead. I am the owner-founder of a small consultancy called Big Bear Partners, based here in the UK. I have an American accent, you might have picked up, but I've been here for 20 years and have worked with as many as 20 different startup to scale up tech and biotech companies over the course of that time, basically building out HR functions and people strategy. And most recently, in the past couple of years, I have switched my focus. Well, I shouldn't say switched, but I have also included in my focus the use of artificial intelligence in the realm of the HR field, as it is a real force multiplier and game changer in terms of the mountainous data that we collect in HR. So I'm trying to kind of lift and shift the strategic level of impact that HR can have on the direction of an organization through the use of AI. Anton?
And my fat thumbs. Sorry.
No worries.
Well, that is brilliant. You heard them, people. We've got two amazing panelists with us today, and they're going to be here for the next 48 minutes, sorry, now. And believe me, unfortunately, that time flies away way quicker than we'd like to. So if you do have any questions, type them in the chat now, and we'll give you the mic, just like we're going to do with Pauline, who just put a question in the chat now. And also, again, a reminder for those of you that are tuning in via our live streams, whether they're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there. So you would need to join us here live on Microsoft Teams. And the way to do that is by going to our website, StartUp to ScaleUp.club. Look out for today's session, Startup Talent Q&A 150. Then you click join. It's a quick registration. You get an email to your link, to your email, and then through that, join us here. By the way, if so today we'll take in any questions you have on talent, and there are no wrong questions for that matter. It's a learning curve for us all. But if your questions are not to do with talent or people or HR, then you can save them for the other events we run. We're currently doing 6 events regularly. Mondays, as you can see today, it's talent. Tuesdays, product and tech. Wednesdays, growth. Thursdays, fundraising. Second Friday of the month, it's UK startup law. Third Friday of the month, it's UK startup finances. And you can actually RSVP to any of them by our site, startup to ScaleUp.club. And actually, when you're there, got a WhatsApp community that we curate quite highly curated, basically. Join that. So on the site, top and bottom page, there's a WhatsApp icon. If you click join, you'll be able to get through to us, and that way you'll also get alerts to all future rooms. But now, just before we go on to Pauline's question, you say are your biggest do's and don'ts, Dave? Let's start with Jeff. And one each, please. And
yeah, sure, real quick. Yeah, no worries. I'll be quick. So do's, definitely make sure that everybody in your small business understands what makes that company money, and to be as product educated and market educated and competitor, educated as they possibly can, so that everybody basically is pulling in the same direction. Everybody has a view of the big picture, and they then can kind of address their functions individually to figure out how to ladder up to those goals. So I think that's first and foremost is certainly a very, very important kind of approach that all founders should take. And don't would be to operate in a sense of isolation. Basically, you as founder, basically working directly with your various function leads, but not again kind of, or possibly just simply forgetting to kind of paint the big picture, which you want to kind of like address at the beginning of every interaction with everybody, to say, hey, listen, just want to catch you up. This is where we're going. This is what's happening. Here's where we're struggling. Here's where we need help. But talk to me about your particular function, and let's figure out how it is you basically can help address that. So I came across numerous articles this past weekend when I was kind of trolling through, and saw that over and over again. This was an issue that founders simply either weren't aware of, or frankly were kind of like struggling to make sure people were all connected. So that's my 2 cents.
Wonderful. Shall I jump in next? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, apologies, Anton. Also, Anton, whilst I have you, your mic, I don't know if your battery's going on your mic, because it's slowly getting quieter and quieter every time we speak to you. But I'll carry on with do's and don'ts then. Exactly what Jeff said, brilliant. I don't have anything else to add in terms of expectations, making sure that the team, as you said, you're all working on the same goals, and make sure you're very, very clear on what those expectations are in terms of the roles, job descriptions, rules, how the company works, things like that, because one person's interpretation of a task can be very different to someone else's. And also to check the basics of employment law. And it may be very tempting for early startups to say, well, it's just the 3 of us, we don't really have anything in writing or contracts. And that always works until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you've now got yourself in a bit of a pickle. So it's much better not to rely on verbal agreements and get everything in writing. And try not to wait too long before you actually start putting some structure into how that might look. Even if that changes, which it will with early startups, those roles will be fluid and they will move with the needs of the business. But you must have some kind of contract or some kind of agreement in place where there is some base in writing, so that when things get difficult, you have something to refer to. And then with the employment law piece, as I mentioned, have a basic understanding or research, or reach out to a consultant or something and get an understanding of what laws might apply to your company. Because even if you hire somebody incorrectly because you didn't know, you could get really heavy fines that could tank your business before you've even had a chance to start. So just make sure that you hit some of those really key compliance pieces when making your first hires.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, Louise. Really appreciate that. And now we'll go on to our first question. Pauline, can you speak? Can you talk?
Yes. Hello, Anton.
Hi.
Hello, panel. Good afternoon. Yes, I'm Pauline from Reggae Calm. Our company is 36 Bus Productions, and I am partner with my friend from university, that's Becca Leithling. It's life. We're all about keeping calm, but we're trying to work out how you let someone go gently but effectively, who's been commissioned to do work but is not actually delivering the work. So thoughts about how you let someone go gently, but we heard a bit about compliance there, and also the issue of pay. If they haven't delivered, what are you paying?
Great.
Thank you
I'll
very much. Go on, Louise. Yep, that's fine. You can go first. Yeah.
Jump in there first. So what I would say for this one is always play devil's advocate and look at the situation from their point of view first. So imagine that you, as the business owner, imagine that you have done a terrible job onboarding them. You have done a terrible job with contracts, and work through worst case scenario at your point, and then work backwards and go, right, have I actually told them what they needed to do? Do we have it in writing? And work as almost you're going from their perspective first. That way, when you start to construct something, you've then done a checklist. So if it then got to court, or if they threaten to sue you, you know that from their point of view, you've absolutely covered all of your bases. What are those bases? Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you in writing. You've said they haven't delivered. So first we would have to look at, what were they asked to deliver? Is that in writing? And is that in writing to a tangible effect? So if you said, do some posts on Instagram, and they've done one post, well, that could be argued that that's some posts. So we need to really look at the specifics of being able to match up a documented line of if that person has delivered or not, and what does that mean. So the first thing you want to do is look at, what did you ask them to do, and where did you document that, asking them to do it. Then I would ask you to say, okay, we can then look at those quality things like that. Then what do you actually want? Do you want the resolution to be, actually, we don't want to work with this person? Or do you want to address it to actually get the work done if maybe you find out you haven't quite been specific enough in what the brief was? And then in terms of the payment, again, that really depends on what was in writing. Have they done some of the work but not all of it? In which case I would look at maybe pro-ratering it. And if you wanted to document those things, again, that depends. Are they a collaborator freelance where you can just say, you know, actually, we wanted this, we haven't quite got it, so let's meet in the middle? Or are they actually a salaried staff member, in which case we need to start looking at, have you given them the opportunity to improve that? That's just a really quick overview. I'll hand over to Jeff and see what else he wants to add in for you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Louise. That was a good comprehensive view on things. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I mean, it sounds to me that potentially this is Pauline, this is a relatively new hire in terms of it being sort of like probably, I'm assuming probably in the first 6 months or so. We fortunately have employment law in the UK that does indicate that you can let somebody go during either a probationary period for a very brief, kind of severance, usually like with 1 week's notice. And if in fact they have gone past the probationary period, usually set at 3 months, and they were continuing to underperform, you still have the option, obviously, of terminating that, with cause, of course. And to Louise's point, if you have things written down, if you had metrics basically that were agreed upon in some sort of an employment contract, that would be super helpful, because then you can point directly to those data points and say, well, look, these things were not achieved. And I think we're quite clear on that. At which point, then you want to kind of like take the second step in that process, which is that you want to kind of put together a polite but effective closure letter, and just indicate, something to the effect of, hey, listen, really appreciate your efforts. We've just not seen the progress and the deliverables that we originally agreed. You can go through those if you wish, but probably kind of like good to stay high level. Just make sure you have the data to back it up. And then just kind of indicate that you're looking to close off the arrangement. Indicate that, look, we value the time that you've dedicated to this, but we need to move forward in another direction. So hopefully we can wrap this up amicably and fairly. In terms of payments due to this individual, it really, again, depends on any kind of a written agreement that you have. So if you have anything written in there in terms of there being some kind of a 1 month severance or things of that nature, again, you don't necessarily have to honor that if this is a termination for cause or breach of contract, because you had the metrics indicated or written down, and that person signed off, you signed off, and that makes it a legal contract. It's entirely up to you if you want to include any kind of a gesture of goodwill payment. That can be a bit of a slippery slope, only because the receiving party may kind of see this as a negotiating point, may feel quite desperate in terms of the fact that they're soon to be out almost immediately to be without income, depending on how it is you're paying them. But yeah, it's just probably good just to tie things off, say we didn't hit the metrics, and we've been monitoring that quite closely, and the facts are what they are. And so we kind of need to move on from there. But yeah, that's how I would handle it. And I would handle it in, rather expeditiously. I would not let things linger, even if people kind of push back and say, yeah, but, unless there are real yeah buts in there for you to address. I would just kind of, again, revert back to the agreed numbers, to the anticipated metrics and outcomes, and just say, hey, listen, I appreciate this is difficult, but we're going to have to kind of just go ahead and settle things right here and right now. Okay, that'd be my 2 cents.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Jeff
you.
and Louise. Pauline, can I ask you, out of all the stuff that Jeff and Louise mentioned, do you have any agreements in place?
There is data in terms of a brief, and there's also a measure of goodwill in this because the person was very excited to come on board. But I think Becca and I need to sit down and think about the points raised today and act on them. I think there's a measure of urgency as well in this because there is momentum. We need to move forward. So it's getting it right from this point on. But I like the idea, like Louise was saying, play devil's advocate, work backwards. Yes, much to think about so far. Thank you, Jeff and Louise.
Yeah, you're welcome. And another thing perhaps worth doing is, but in line with what Louise said, have a seat and have a chat. And Jeff touched on this, and ask them outright, what do you think your work has been here in terms of performance? Literally find out from them how they see, because what they might end up saying is, this isn't really for me. And then you're in the clear because you then don't need to worry about anything else. Let me, Louise, do you want to talk?
Yeah, I just wanted to say 2 things on that. I wanted to pick up on what Pauline said about they were really excited to come on board. There are no friends in business. You can be kind, you can be empathetic, you can be fair, but it is not your problem that they were excited and then didn't deliver. That's on them, and you do not need to take that responsibility on. As much as you are an empathetic, lovely, wonderful person, you are not a charity, you are a business. So I would be very careful telling yourself that kind of narrative. And sometimes if you want to survive, you also need to obviously think about it from their point of view, as I said, like from a legal and advocacy point of view, to make sure that you are being as fair as possible. But please don't put that weight on yourself. As business owners, you have so much weight and pressure. You also don't need to think, oh, but they were excited. Yeah, great, we're all excited. Deliver the work or go away. And that's essentially what it is for us as business owners. Of course, we don't want to say that. Of course, we also want to be fair and create wonderful, safe spaces for all of them, which is why I would also use this as an opportunity to look at why you think it might have failed, because we do sometimes have to take responsibility that maybe we could have been clearer, we could have worked with that. And then where Anton mentioned here, ask them about how they think it worked. That's brilliant if they are on your payroll and they are staff and you actually want to work with them and have that feedback loop. However, if they are a freelance collaborator who was paid to deliver one kind of thing one time, I personally would avoid getting into that level of specifics. I don't know whether Jeff has any comments on how to navigate that line there, but that's just my 2 cents. I hope it makes sense, the point where I'm coming from. I don't know if Jeff has any differing opinions.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, Louise. I mean, look, these are uncomfortable and awkward situations. There's no doubt about that. And to Louise's point, you still want to come across as somebody who wants to keep a friend, right? You don't want to burn a bridge. Having said that, business is business. And at the end of the day, you guys as directors of this business have a responsibility to make sure that the right people are hired and put into the right seats, doing the right job to kind of get the right results. And so at the end of the day, that is first and foremost your obligation to the organization. And it's important. I know it sounds a bit cold and calculating, and I appreciate your whole ethos and Reggae Calm is about chill, is about, kind of like you're there to help, thousands, if not millions of people to kind of just relax and get into a good headspace. You can still carry forth that ethos in your conversation with this person and say, listen, really do appreciate, your dedication, your enthusiasm, and your excitement about this. But unfortunately, metrics are metrics, and we really need to hit this in order to kind of keep the company alive and growing. That's our mission, that's our focus, that's our goal. I hope we've been quite clear in terms of the metrics. Unfortunately, we're just not seeing the results. And we've kind of talked about this. Hopefully you have talked about this on a regular basis. It's not coming out of the blue. And we need to take action because we've got to keep this organization healthy and importantly, growing in the direction we need it to go. So having said all that, this is a difficult and awkward thing to acknowledge that. That's totally acceptable. And I'm sorry for this, but this is kind of where we've landed and where we need to go from here. So, here's what we're putting together for you, whatever that looks like, I have no idea. And we would ask that that we terminate this relationship, immediate, with immediate effect, or again, whatever arrangement you have, hopefully in writing in terms of a contract, execute on that fairly, openly, and you will always ever then stay out of trouble in terms of how it is you've handled it. But usually I find that those transactions go much more smoothly when you show your humanity, but also, help them recognize that you're running a business at the end of the day. So very valid points.
Thank you very much to both of you. And on that humanity side, the reason why I personally have actually, well, unfortunately, I had to do this way more than I liked, both for my businesses, but also working as a talent partner and working for other people in other roles, is that especially nowadays as a startup, all it takes is for somebody to leave a bad comment on Glassdoor or somewhere else, and then you're kind of done for quite a bit, because as a startup, you literally just don't have the bandwidth to then go and deal with those comments online. So asking somebody, in my experience, how do you think things have gone? That doesn't necessarily mean that you're giving them a free rein in terms of for them to run the show. You are still in charge, Gordon, and you still tell them what you need to tell them. But when you kind of give them that opportunity, one, you stay in line with those values that you want to instill from Reggae Calm, but at the same time, there could be quite a bit of learning there about yourself and about perhaps other people that were involved in the business. And even if things still don't go how you'd like them to go, and that person still goes and leaves a bad comment somewhere, you can actually reach out to that platform and say, look, this is what was done, and that person is lying. Can you now please remove that from your platform? And unfortunately, I've had to do this a few times as well. So just something to bear in mind, for you to be in control, but at the same time, be seen that you're giving those people the opportunities to to tell you what's happened. And actually, I've had this a few times when I've said that and they've just said, yeah, this isn't really working, is it? And that relieves you from quite a bit of what's the best word I can put this? That relieves you from quite a bit of getting into a messy situation, or the need to get into that. Hope we've helped. Pauline, do you have any follow-ups?
No, I think that was really answering the question in the round. Someone who overpromised, underdelivered, and taking a tough love approach, really, which I think we can align to. We are running a business, we're committed, we're motivated, and if it's not working, we're going to have to cut off that limb nicely.
Absolutely. Nice and firm. Thank you very much for that, Pauline, and best of luck. Right here, we now have 26 minutes to go. This is Startup Talent Q&A. We're here to help startups with whatever questions you may have on your people journey, whether you want to know how and where to find them, how to perhaps hire them, how to interview them, how to pay them, how to empower them, and all that jazz. This is the place to be. All you can do, if you want to, is type your question in the chat, and then we'll give you the mic to ask our panel. If you are tuning in via LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately, we are unable to monitor your questions there. So you would need to join us here live on Microsoft Teams. It's live audio, by the way, and audio only. The best way to do that, or quickest way, is to go to our website, startup-to-scaleup.club. Look for today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 150. Click join, quick registration. That gets you a link to your email, which you then can click and join us directly here in Microsoft Teams. For those of you that are here, all you have to do is type your question in the chat, and then we'll give you the mic to ask our team. By the way, there are no wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. If, however, your questions today are not on talent, please save them for the other conversations and events we run. Mondays, as you can see today, obviously is talent. Tuesdays is product and tech. Wednesdays growth. Thursdays fundraising. Second Friday of the month, UK startup law. And third Friday of the month, UK startup finances. That all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup-to-scaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, you might want to join us on our WhatsApp community. There's a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of the website. And if you click on that icon, you'll join the community of founders, investors, and operators, but also get alerts to all future rooms. And now, without further ado, I'd like to go to our amazing panel on the question that was sent in to us. I'll read it out loud for those of you that are on the live streams. And if Louise and Jeff want, obviously you can read it here as well. So, as the co-founder of a pre-seed clean energy startup in Nottingham, where we design compact solar panels for urban homes, we're facing challenges with potential conflicts between remote contractors and in-office engineers over project timelines. What affordable conflict resolution practices could we introduce to foster smoother communication and mutual understanding across teams? Plus, how can we structure a system for reporting and addressing grievances that encourages a collaborative culture whilst respecting the flexible nature of contractor roles? Oh boy, quite a mouthful. Perhaps we can start with our lady of the house on this, and then we can go to Jeff. Louise?
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so I would say, first of all, to be using some kind of project management or reporting system. I am a huge fan of RASI, which is essentially just having, it's almost like a to-do list, but instead it's a task tracker with statuses. So you have an option to put the task, you can break it down into further subtasks, and then you have a very clear defined line of who's responsible, what they're responsible for, any deadlines or any blocks, and then every person is responsible at the end of each day for updating their tasks. And that can stop things hanging around in to-do lists, because it's very clearly, definitively laid down in one big table with everybody else, and you can have it sort of like a live status tracker. And that means everybody's on the same page about who's doing what and when it's due by, and you can put accountability. So the next person up in the chain of command then is the person who's then responsible for making sure that section of the project gets done. Now, in terms of their hours, if some are remote, some are out, etc., I would maybe suggest having core contact hours, so that maybe that if they have multiple time zones, or if people are some on hot desking, some remote, some in office, some contract, it just means that maybe there's a window of an hour or 2 hours every day where everybody's online at the same time, that they can jump on calls or have follow-ups and updates. It sounds like most of this conflict arises from people working in silos and having sort of that line of separation. So I would be trying to implement things that bring that team together, where you can almost ignore the contract status, and it shouldn't matter who is in-house and who's remote, etc. It should just be, we're all together working on this project. So how can we do that? So for me, it would be having project tracking with very clear lines of who's responsible for which bits, so they're not on top of each other. And then also make sure you have this core contact hours. There could also be somebody who's maybe sort of a more neutral host, who's responsible for just sort of trying to get those updates that maybe doesn't particularly belong to each side. Doesn't have to be HR, but just to maybe some sort of project manager. And then lastly, maybe I would say, if they have a safe space for a reflection piece, maybe once a week, where it's just a 15 minutes open-ended question where everybody talks and brings something. What went well? What did we need? And using that we sense of what do we need? What resources? Something that's working, something that's perhaps giving some struggle, any suggestions, and that we're having that sort of open forum that everybody can bring things together in a safe space before they start to grind and become conflicts. So everybody needs to have those expectations that all the roles in the team are important and work together regardless of the contract status. I will hand over to you, Jeff.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Just before we go to Jeff, can I ask you a favor? Just before we go to you, Louise, one quick question: is Rafa free or free to use or anything like that? Do you know the price model there?
So RACI is actually a type of RACI. It's actually a type of system. So you can either create them on Excel, and it just is a reporting system. You can Google.
I see. Oh yeah, yeah.
It's not.
Can I ask you a favor?
Yeah.
Would you mind on LinkedIn? I'll tag both you and Jeff on our live stream. Would you mind, whilst Jeff gives us his pearls of wisdom, would you mind finding maybe I don't know, an article somewhere or something and just post it under the live stream there? Would that be okay, Louise?
Yes, I will do, no problem. Exactly. RACI itself is sort of just an idea, a concept. However, many project management templates are based on this that people will find within software pieces as well, such as Notion or the other ones as well. So I'll have a look for you and can give you some more examples. See, apologies, I need to be more specific.
No, that's okay. Just for the people following this. Go on, Jeff.
Yeah, no worries. And we've used what I guess Americans call the RACI, kind of format, which is a responsibilities, accountabilities, communication, communicate and inform. It's that kind of a matrix. It's really quite simple in terms of listing out, who is responsible in essence, to what level for what activity, for each project. And you basically take a very simple kind of project management format, as I'm sure this firm will be used to. Hopefully, and then just basically break down every project into its component parts, and then kind of indicate who is responsible, who is accountable, who needs to be communicated to about this, and who needs simply to be informed about that element. Is sort of what Louise, I think, was talking about. And look, everything she said is exactly right. This is all about open communication, transparency, and from the business owner's perspective, it's about facilitating expertly, a continuous conversation about what is the work that needs to get done, in what way, with what supplies, by what date, and what is the cost, what are the cost parameters, all those kinds of things. Literally, kind of like creating an extraordinarily standardized and consistent approach to each project as it comes through the door. Super important that you kind of employ what I guess look a lot like agile software tactics, right? Which simply is, having sort of a weekly sync up and just making sure that you guys are all connected, right? It doesn't, to Louise's point, nobody is on another team here. You guys are all on the same team. So you need to kind of be able to connect with each other, go through a very, very carefully orchestrated and consistent approach, and just break down the information for everybody and make sure everybody has all the information so that they know what the moving parts look like. They know basically what the impact of their contribution is, and basically understand that there is going to be some kind of hopefully a project management tool that everybody will have access to. And there's loads of great construction tools out there. I can't recall any off the top of my head. I'll have to do a bit of a search on it. But you could also use, tools like Notion comes to mind. I'll go ahead and flag these in a second. But yeah, Notion, Trello. There's another one called ClickUp is another tool. Yeah, there's loads of them. And they're very, very simple to use. They all have mobile apps on them for people out in the field. And basically, if somebody, some project manager takes the time to kind of flesh all that stuff out and just put it into the program, and then kind of lay out the anticipated, kind of timelines on things, then people all have that in front of them. and then you can get them together on a weekly basis and say, right, sync up. What do people think? And then you can have hopefully constructive conversations about, ooh, these timelines are way too aggressive, or weather's getting in the way, or we can't find these parts, or whatever the issues are, and you basically solve it right then and there. And again, with the attitude that everybody's on the same team. So I think that's super important. Always make sure too that you can reset everybody's, kind of vibe and expectations and so forth. If things start to get heated, people feel like I'm not being heard, I'm not being listened to, it doesn't matter. That's something that, as a founder and or the sort of functional leads, you really need to kind of focus your attention and time on. Because if people don't feel like they've been heard, that's when things really start to break down. And it sounds like they're doing that already. In terms of, a formal channel to, kind of like air grievances, you always ever want to make sure that you have, kind of access to confidential conversations, safe spaces for people to come and, excuse me, and kind of indicate like, this is what's frustrating me. And again, there are lots of interesting tools in terms of, kind of, well, certainly lots of web articles. There's a lot of, kind of thoughts around the ACAS UK employment routine. They make suggestions about how to kind of deal with grievances. I've already posted that in the chat. And it's really just kind of like, just an issue of kind of working through what somebody's complaint is and really kind of picking that apart, spending more time trying to understand it, less time trying to kind of be, prescriptive about how to go fix it, right? Nobody hates that more than, when they're feeling emotional, they're feeling angry, they're feeling tied up, and basically they're talking to the one safe person that they've been told to chat with about this, and that person basically says, yeah, okay, I've heard this story before. Here's what you want to go do. That doesn't allow that person to kind of air out all of the, the kind of pent up frustration that they likely have. So take time to listen, parrot back what you think you heard, make sure that you take notes, right? And then basically kind of work through with that person how best they should go about, creating a remedy for this. And always ever focus on the positive outcomes, that can come of these things, the lessons learned, and things of that nature. So that would be my take on that. And otherwise, I kind of just pulled some stuff off, off the internet, and I'll share that stuff with you now.
Thank you very much, Seth. And my 2 pence on this, one thing I've seen work well in the past, and I've implemented this myself too, is to find a way to switch people around, give people in different departments an opportunity to work with the other person. If you do that, the more of that you do, the more sync you're likely to get between people, and the less misunderstanding is likely to happen. That's one thing. The second part, now we in startup land talk a lot about breaking things and kind of being agile and all that jazz. But the thing is, if you don't know something, if you don't know enough about the system of doing things, then you're likely to break the wrong thing, and you're also likely to cause breaks that don't help you. And that's why I've always, and I know I may sound a bit archaic, but I've always been a fan that any company, if possible, if you can afford it, that is, you should offer to each and every employee, even your receptionist or whoever you have working for you, the opportunity to get a Prince2 certificate. That is sort of the gold standard, at least in the UK, on anything to do with project management. That's one. The second part is I really like that sort of kind of regular check-ins with each other. Maybe I think Louise said 15 minutes a day or anything like that. You really want to do that. And last but not least, you want to always be able to pick a certain period, whether it's weekly or monthly or daily. Well, daily may not be possible because you got to run a business, to find ways to give credit to people. I'm sure in a week you can always find, or in a month, you can always find something good that one of your employees did, and put that out there publicly in terms of any grievances or any critique that you want to give them. Then you need to do that privately. If there is something that is happening and you want everybody to know, you can kind of send everybody a message, but that is without giving names or kind of making pointing, singling out someone basically. And that can be quite helpful. We now have 10 minutes to go, and I think we can only go with one more question. Jeff, can I ask you a favor? This is all brilliant stuff, but not everybody is going to see these.
Right.
You and Louise have kindly put here. Would you mind doing that on our LinkedIn stream, please? Unless you don't want to go all out there with that. So
no,
if you look
I'm happy to. I just have to figure out how to do it. But
no, that's okay. So if you go on LinkedIn, you'll see that I've tagged you on the live stream.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You'll see that I've tagged you, and literally you can either do that by going to our company page, so the profile page on LinkedIn, StartUp to Scale Up Club, and the last post there is today's stream. It's live now as we speak.
Okay.
If you can, if not, don't worry about it.
I'll certainly try to. I'll just do it.
This is very useful too. It's just that I've noticed that we tend to have way more eyeballs on our LinkedIn streams, unfortunately for us, than actually the live call here in Microsoft Teams. If that makes sense.
Yep, I'll
right.
work on that.
Good man. So, last question we have then, where is it? Okay, I'm going to read that out loud for those of you tuning in via the live streams. I'm the co-founder of a seed-stage health tech startup in Oxford that provides AI-driven medical devices. We are bringing on an overseas contractor to help with development, but I want to ensure they feel fully integrated into the team. How can we structure remote work policies to foster collaboration between in-house and remote team members, especially when it comes to feedback loops and productivity tracking? Actually, I just realized these two are quite similar. Wish I'd picked another question that was sent in to us, but go ahead, Jeff. What are your thoughts on this? And then we'll go to Louise.
Well, as I'm trying to kind of do this transfer of stuff over, I'm reminded that this is exactly what we just talked about. And it's really interesting how small company teams seemingly can just break down because and suddenly feel like the weight of the world is on the executive's shoulders. And it seems like all of the employees are just misbehaving and are immature and they're not getting on with each other and the whole world is coming crashing down. And look, at the end of the day, this is what our job is, right? Is to kind of pull everybody together and supply a big vision for everybody to get excited about, something bigger than everybody else is, and something that we all basically adhere to and get excited about. That's why we're here in the first place. The next thing is, here is the context of us all getting together. Okay, and this is really important because here's what it is we're trying to achieve. Third thing is, right, now let's get into the weeds. Let's get into the nitty gritty and let me just kind of look function by function in terms of, who's got to deliver what in order for this dream to come to life, in order for this contract to be completed, whatever it is, and basically kind of outline that for you. Now, let me be clear about what your role in this is, because I can't be responsible for your actions, for the way you think, for the way that you're going to contribute. I, in fact, need you, being a bit vulnerable here, I need you all to kind of stand up to this, to own this, to be part of the solution. Okay, that's how we work here. And so in that vein, we're going to make sure that we hear and listen to one another. We're also going to make sure that we understand each other's pain points and issues and frustrations. And then finally, we're also going to make sure that we then start to work on cooperative, cross-functional solutions. Nobody lives in a silo. Everybody works as a complete organism. That's the only way this thing is going to come to life. And that is true of every startup, of every business that's ever existed. If people don't think of themselves as being part of a whole, a critical part of a whole, and realize that they need to contribute day in and day out, not just to their own function or silo. They need to contribute to the bigger picture. And that's absolutely mission critical. So that would be my take on it, Anton.
It's brilliant. Thank you very much, Jeff. Louise, what would you do in this instance?
I think Jeff's covered most of what I would say, especially because, as we said, it was very similar. I think mostly what we need to do is not take for granted the fact that, as Jeff said, sometimes we can all be very experienced and have lots, but just trying to pull together can be really in those little moments as well, like just making sure that we get on a call and talk and hear someone's voice instead of just those messages, and just really sometimes taking things back to basics at trying to build that human connection that can really help pull teams together. And that's sort of what I have to add on that.
That is brilliant. Thank you very much. And the only thing I'd like to add here is I've seen, and I'm a believer in the power of the buddy system, and I've seen it work really well. The only thing I would add to the brilliant stuff that Jeff and Louise mentioned here is, for this new hire, on top of doing all that great stuff that Jeff and Louise said, also find them a buddy in the company, ideally someone who knows things more than the others do in terms of how everything runs, but also somebody who is a good leader and can be both firm but also emotionally intelligent. So bear that in mind, because having a buddy from the go basically can be quite helpful, especially if somebody is working remotely, and especially if they're working from overseas, then that's even more reason to have that in place. Right here, we now have 3 minutes to go. I'm not sure we're going to have time to take another question, but perhaps we can get some parting words. So again, we can start from the lady of the house, and then we can go on to Jeff. Louise, what words you want to leave us with today?
I would say always document everything. This can be really useful for you as a business owner and a startup, even just getting your ideas down on paper. It doesn't have to be even specifically related to your teams or your HR. I just mean generally as a startup, figure out what specifically your missions, your goals, what are you trying to do. Then, of course, leading into that people piece, it's useful having the contracts, what you want, your projects, what you need. Just get everything documented down all the time, because it will also help streamline those goals. And then it helps to always ask you and your team, is what we are doing today getting us back to our goal? Is it going to lead us closer to money? We can spend a lot of time busy all day, every day, working in the business, when you really need to be working on the business and focus, is what I'm doing today getting me closer to those sales, or am I just looking busy because I'm overwhelmed? So just do everything that you can with documentation and intention. And those are my parting words for today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that wisdom. Jeff?
Yep, my parting words for today, it seems to have been a theme today, is all about making sure that you're acting as a singular organism, that you are all moving together in the same motion, that each of you are bringing your own special, powerful skills to the equation, but that you as a founder are doing an extraordinarily good job of articulating what the big vision is and how that then breaks down into specific goals and targets. And then how is it you're planning on measuring your ability to go and hit those targets to achieve the big vision. Get people excited about that. Talk about it till you're blue in the face, until you're absolutely sick of hearing your own voice, and make sure that people understand there is a consistent theme here. I get what's going on, and then basically start to help people ladder up to that challenge and make sure that they understand this is your part in this big vision. Now I want you to go away and put together your objectives, and I want then for you to kind of help me understand how it is you're going to measure the achievement of those objectives. And the alignment is super critical. And you have that philosophy, and you can actually hopefully do away with a lot of these painful challenges and issues that are emerging in terms of, the remote workers not talking to the office workers. People don't understand us. They don't know what our realities are. And you create this us versus them tribalism. And that basically is the thing that destroys companies. This is your job as a founder, is to make sure that as the chief of the tribe, you are basically making sure you are telling the stories that say, this is the great thing that we want to become. This is what we will accomplish, but only together. And this is how this is all going to come together. So that would be my my parting words of wisdom, if you will.
Thank you very much to both of you. I've really enjoyed today's session and your brilliant responses. Huge thanks to everyone that tuned in, actually, whether it was via the live streams or here on Microsoft Teams. Most of you already know my preference. We'd rather have you here on Microsoft Teams because it makes for a much better and interactive conversation. And actually, you get way more out of it because it means you can ask our panelists directly by typing your questions here in the chat. But don't worry, you haven't done that today. You can do that in future sessions. We run 6 regular sessions. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of the month it's UK startup finances. You can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup2scaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, you might want to join our community on WhatsApp, which is founders, investors, and operators and other supporters we have. And you can do that by clicking on the WhatsApp icon on our site, which is top and bottom of the site. Now, in terms of my parting words, just remember the startup journey can be both difficult but also quite challenging and at the same time quite exciting. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Product and Tech Q&A. Otherwise, have a great afternoon. God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.